everyone, Cleo here, and today we are going over the priority translated fiction TBR. So last year, I think in November and December, I brought out two videos with my priority nonfiction and my priority fantasy reads. Basically, these are videos of books that I want to add to my TBR as soon as possible. I am trying to get to 0 TBR, and so hopefully some of these will be the first. books that I pick up at that point in time. However, nothing is for sure. The list that I made in November and December definitely already needs a little bit of fine-tuning. This is what at this point in time I'm really craving to read. These are the works of translated fiction that I am dying to get my hands on. And so we're gonna start off with one that I really want to get around to because this author is really hyped. There's so many people who love her works. She's very much a big name in translated fiction. However, the concept of the book doesn't necessarily sound like something that is an automatic win for me. And I'm talking about Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tokarczuk. So Olga Tokarczuk is a Polish author. This book is centered around a recluse woman who basically sees a lot of crime happening in her neighborhood. A lot of people are ending up dead, and it seems like she is determined to kind of tackle the problem, to figure out what has taken place. She very much is a recluse, as she said. She's somebody who kind of doesn't really like people all that much. She very much is more in favor of spending her time with animals than with actual human beings. Now, it says something about this book exploring the border between madness, the border between justice and tradition and things like that, and those things sound good to me. But if you've been around this channel, you know that I don't like murder mystery type plots, and I don't know whether it's gonna be like front and center to this story or not, but that element being there just makes me go like, am I gonna like this or not? But so I do definitely want to give Olga Tokarczuk's writing a try. I definitely want to, at least for myself, see is this also an author that I would really like or not, because I've heard so much about her books. And recently another one of her works, The Books of Jacob, has been published, and this is like a over 1,000 page book, I think, so I'm definitely not diving into that one before having tried out some of her other writing first. Second on this list is Breast and Eggs by Miko Kawakami. Miko Kawakami is another one of these authors that for years I've been kind of saving up for the moment in which I could buy more books without feeling guilty about it. I think in the beginning of the year I kind of said that I wanted to do some sort of like author tryout videos where I would read multiple books by a particular author, and I think Miko Kawakami is definitely a candidate for that type of video. Specifically here I mentioned Breast and Eggs because that is like the first big title by her that I think was translated, or at least the first title that I was aware of. So in Breast and Eggs we are following 4 women as they travel to Tokyo because one of them wants to get a breast enhancement. Now, one of the 4 others has basically gone quite silent over the last few months or years maybe, and her silence basically triggers the sort of opening up of the 3 other companions on this journey, talking about things that have been bothering them. I have heard really great things about Breast and Eggs. I kind of heard that it is also kind of split between 2 different types of stories, and that most people like one more than the other, but a whole lot of people really love Miko Kawakami's writing, and you know, I really love Japanese literature, so I'm really expecting a lot here. Next up we have The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa. This is an author that I have previously sampled, so I have already read The Housekeeper and the Professor by her. I do still have to read The Diving Pool by her in order to get to 0 TBR, and the moment that I do that I will finally dive into The Memory Police. The Memory Police is basically the book by her that is most well known on BookTube. It's the book that I see people read who don't typically read translated fiction, for example, or who don't typically read general or literary fiction. So in The Memory Police, this is basically a speculative work, a sci-fi work. In The Memory Police there's a strong emphasis on the thematic surrounding memory, as the title would suggest. So basically, people's memory of certain things start disappearing. And it's not like the items disappear, but people no longer have the possibility to place these items. If they see birds, for example, they will no longer be like, oh, that's a bird. They will just see something in the sky and won't be able to identify what that is or to give that object a place in their mind, because all of those memories have been stolen. And at the same time, there's also a memory police. Basically, this police tracks down people who do still have these memories, because not everybody loses memories of these items. Some people do still have memories and they are tracked down. I think our main character is somebody who knows somebody who remembers. I don't think that she herself is somebody who remembers, but that she is close friends to a writer or a journalist who still has memories. Now, I think the subject matter of memory is very interesting. She already plays with memory a lot in The Housekeeper and The Professor, and so I'm very interested to see what she will do with the topic in The Memory Police. And as I said, I love Japanese literature, so this one I'm expecting to enjoy a lot. Next up we have Tender is the Flesh by Agustina Basterica. So this is an Argentinian novel, I believe, so it's translated from Spanish. This sounds very interesting, and it's also one of those books that more people in BookTube have discovered than just the sort of like general fiction, literary fiction side of BookTube. So in this book, I don't know too much about the premise in itself. I know that it discusses the idea of consuming human flesh. So basically, for some reason or another, we cannot eat animals anymore, so we eat humans instead. And so it's all about, you know, the production of human meat. And so I'm assuming that the parallels between the meat industry as it is today and the meat industry, if you replace animals with humans, is kind of gonna give a reflection on our consumption of meat. But I don't know too much, and I know that it's a difficult read because of the subject matter, obviously, but I've really been wanting to read it ever since I heard about that. I might try and read it in the original Spanish. We'll see if that's too difficult or not, but I probably will try it in Spanish. Next up we have a Korean horror book. I don't read horror a lot, so this could go totally wrong because I don't like horror movies, for example. But what I don't like about horror movies is the fact that I'm just like waiting for the jump scare at all times, and I don't think I will get that through a book. What I like in horror a lot is the sort of like unsettling horror, the horror of, you know, things being a little bit too close to reality, which is not the case for this one, but perhaps it will have some elements of it. Basically, in this one, people have been dying, and right before they die, they hear sort of like whispers. That's all I know. I'm basically going into this one based on a recommendation from Books and Bow, which is a great channel that if you aren't following already, you totally should. Definitely, if you're interested in translated fiction, they read a whole lot of translated fiction. And so basically, they really love this book, and I'm really love their channel, so I'm going to go off of that recommendation. I do want to try out more horror, and so this one seems like a good one to start. Next up we have Magma by Thora Hjörleifsdottir. Totally butchered that name. I think I got the daughter somewhat okay, but yeah, sorry for that. So this, I believe, is an Icelandic piece of literature. And so in this one we have this young woman falling head over heels with this young man, and once she enters into a relationship with him, she kind of becomes trapped in the relationship. More and more she is adapting her ways of living, she's adapting her habits and things like that to suit his needs, to please him. More and more she's crossing boundaries of what is comfortable to her, what she feels okay with doing, and she's letting go of herself more and more. So basically it's about the abuse that is possible in relationships, the violence that can be associated with relationships. I have heard great things about it. It's another one of those books that had quite a lot of buzz a few months back, and so I've been waiting for my chance to dive into it. Next up we have The House of the Spirits by Isabel Allende. This is an oldie. This book I've been wanting to read since like my teenage years, maybe even already. So this is a Latin American book. I'm not entirely sure from which country Isabel Allende is. Maybe she's also Argentinian. I'll have it on the screen. But so, The House of the Spirits, La Casa de los Espíritus, it has a Hollywood adaptation, I believe, as well. And all I really remember about it is that like one of these characters has like a connection to the supernatural or something like that. But in essence, it is magical realism. It is a family saga. We are looking at multiple generations, which is something that I always really love. And so Isabel Allende is a big name in Latin American literature. And so I want to at least start diving into some of her works. She usually has a book out every year, every 2 years or something. I think there's a recent release as well for her, or maybe an upcoming one. So yeah, it's another author that has been on the back burner for way too long and I need to dive in. Next up we have The Eighth Life by Nino Haratishvili. This is a Georgian book. It is also a family saga. That's all I know about it. It's a huge chunker. It really was like super hyped both in the English language world as here in Belgium a few years ago when it was released. My mother actually has it, but I don't think she's dared to dive into that big book yet. But yeah, it's a family saga. As I said, I really love family sagas and I don't really know anything about Georgian history, so it will be very interesting to dive in. Second to last is another one that I don't necessarily remember too much of the premise. This is Hurricane Season by Fernanda Melchor, which won, I think, the International Booker Prize 2 years ago maybe already at this point. So this is a Mexican novel and I believe it had to do something with, like Olga Tokarczuk's book, with an outside recluse type of woman, and I believe with an allegation of witchcraft against her. I could be wrong about that. And then the final one, the 10th book on this list, is going to be The Membranes by Chi Tao-wei. This is a Taiwanese novel. I've never read a Taiwanese novel before, so I'm definitely happy to include it. And basically this is a groundbreaking queer sci-fi novel. The premise is not sticking in my mind for some reason. I've read it a few times, but I just keep on remembering elements. I remember it had to do with a world that has been devastated by climate change, and as a result, maybe they need to go underground or something. Wherever they are now in this book, it is because of climate change making our current day world uninhabitable. And our character who we are following, I believe, has been living a sort of like very normal, everyday, acceptable life and is about to start exploring her true identity. And so it's supposed to break boundaries of gender, for example. And so I'm not entirely sure whether it's, for example, a female-female relationship, or whether it's more talking about trans identity or non-binary identity. I don't know. It's a queer novel, that I do know, and I'm very excited to dive into it. But so yeah, there you have it. Those are the 10 translated fiction works highest on my radar at this point in time. But as I said in the beginning, the top 10 changes all the time, because probably if tomorrow I watch a video in which somebody mentions some sort of a translated fiction work, I'm like, ooh, I really want to get to that one, and then I kind of have it higher on my list again. So we'll see what ends up happening when I actually get to ZERO TBR. But some of these definitely will be some of the first that I buy, because some of these have really been literally waiting for years for me to have the time for them, and I'm reminded of them every few months or weeks even. I'm like, oh yeah, I really want to start reading this author. When will I have the time? And that time is coming up soon. So if you have any other recommendations for translated fiction that you really want me to try out, definitely let me know down below. I'm always looking for more recommendations. If some of these books on this list you want to push forward, you want to emphasize that I absolutely should get the moment I reach ZERO TBR, feel free to do so as well. And with that, I will leave you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video and see you guys for the next one. Bye!